Everyone in town feared Thunder, the giant black bull who had already injured 3 cowboys. But then a stranger named Bun walked into the corral. Without a rope, without a weapon, and without fear. He told Nagele, the Apache woman who raised the bull, "I won't fight him, I'll make him trust me." She laughed and made him a promise. If he could make Thunder eat from his hand, she would marry him. But nobody knew the bull wasn't evil, he was terrified. And when the next storm arrived, Bun would risk his life to prove that patience could tame what force never could. What happened next shocked the entire town. Watch Love in the Wild West on the next video app as soon as possible. Please subscribe to my channel. Here is the English translation of the script, adapted for flow and narrative consistency while preserving the original tone and details. Dust rose like clouds of fire under the midday sun. In the town square, something extraordinary was about to happen. A black bull, enormous as a living mountain, bellowed with fury while men scattered in panic. His eyes burned like hot coals, and every movement he made shook the earth. But amidst all that chaos, there was someone who wasn't running. Bun had just arrived in town that morning, his hat dusty and his boots worn from miles of travel. He was a cowboy who had ridden across the entire West, but he had never seen anything like this. The bull was magnificent, wild, and impossible to control. And beside the corral, watching the scene with a mixture of pride and worry, stood her, Nagele. She was an Apache woman of captivating beauty, with hair as black as night, and eyes that seemed to hold all the secrets of the mountains. She wore a dress that blended the traditions of her people with the style of frontier life. Everyone in town knew and respected her because she was as brave as she was beautiful, as intelligent as she was determined. The bull belonged to her. She had raised him since he was a calf. But something had changed in the animal. A storm had frightened him months ago, and since then, no man had been able to approach him without risking his life. Bun stopped at the edge of the square, fascinated, not by the bull, but by the woman watching it with a look full of determination and sadness. He knew there was something special about this moment, something that would change his life forever. "That bull has more fury than 10 storms combined," commented an old man beside him, shaking his head. 3 cowboys have already tried to tame him. One ended up with a broken arm, another with 3 fractured ribs. Nagele had said that if anyone could calm him, she would stay in the village forever, but no one had succeeded. Bun felt something strange in his chest, a mix of challenge and destiny. Without thinking twice, he approached the corral where Nagele was guarding her bull. She looked him up and down, evaluating him just as she had evaluated all the other cowboys who had arrived with empty promises. "Miss," said Bun, taking off his hat respectfully, "that bull of yours is magnificent." Nagele arched an eyebrow. Her expression was one of total skepticism. "He is dangerous," she replied firmly. "He has hurt many men who thought they could tame him with force." "I'm not talking about taming him with force." Bun smiled with confidence. "I'm talking about understanding him. I can make that bull trust me. I can make him as gentle as a lamb." Narrator break. Before we continue with this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any chapters. We would also love to know which country you are listening from. Write your city or country in the comments. It fills us with joy and helps us keep bringing you the best stories of the Old West. Now, let's continue. Nagele looked at him with disbelief and then laughed. It was a clear musical laugh that made several men in the square turn to look at her. It wasn't a cruel laugh, but a genuine one, as Bun had just told the most absurd joke in the world. "You?" she asked, still smiling. "Cowboy, I've heard those words before. 5 men came here saying the same thing. They all failed. What makes you think you are different?" Bun stepped a little closer, his gray eyes meeting Nagele's dark ones. There was something in his gaze that wasn't arrogance, but deep conviction. "Because when I look at that bull, I don't see a wild animal," he said calmly. "I see a scared, confused being who needs time and patience. I'm not going to fight him. I'm going to be his friend." Nagele stopped laughing, but the skeptical smile remained on her lips. "All right, dreamer cowboy, I'll give you a chance, just as I gave it to the others. But when you fail like all of them, I hope you have the dignity to leave town without making more promises you can't keep." "And if I don't fail?" asked Bun, his heart beating faster. "If I manage to get that bull to eat from my hand, what do I win?" Nagele looked at him with amusement, clearly not believing it was possible. "If you manage that, Cowboy, if you can really make Thunder accept you as a friend." She paused dramatically, her eyes shining with challenge. "Then I will consider marrying you." The entire square fell silent. Several men let out whistles of amazement. Nagele had said those words as a joke, as something impossible that would never happen. But Bun didn't take it as a joke. "Is it a promise?" he asked, extending his hand. Nagele, still smiling in disbelief, shook his hand. "It's a promise, Cowboy, but prepare yourself for disappointment." At that moment, Thunder bellowed furiously from the corral, as if he knew his fate had just been sealed. The sun shone intensely over the square, and Bun felt that his life had changed forever. He didn't know how, but he was going to achieve the impossible. Not just for the challenge, but because the moment he saw Nagele smile, he knew he had found something more valuable than all the gold in the West. He had found his destiny. Dawn painted the sky orange and purple when Bun approached the corral for the first time. He hadn't slept all night, thinking about his strategy. Thunder was already awake, his black eyes watching every move with absolute distrust. The bull was even more impressive up close. His horns gleamed in the early light, and every muscle in his body seemed carved from living stone. When Bun approached the fence, Thunder bellowed a warning, scraping the ground with his hooves as if preparing to attack. "Easy, friend," Bun murmured softly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to get to know you." From a safe distance, Nagele watched the scene with her arms crossed. She had arrived early, expecting to see the cowboy make the same mistake as all the others, trying to impose his will on the animal. But to her surprise, Bun simply sat on the ground on the other side of the fence. No threatening movements. "What are you doing?" asked Nagele, approaching with curiosity. "Observing," replied Bun without taking his eyes off the bull. "I need to understand what scares him, what makes him happy, how he behaves when he thinks he's alone." Nagele frowned, but something inside her began to soften. This cowboy was different. The others had arrived with ropes and elaborate plans to break the animal. Bun was just sitting there. "My grandfather taught me that all living beings have a language," said Nagele. "So surprise herself by sharing that wisdom. Plants, animals, even stones. You just need to learn how to listen." Bun turned to look at her, his eyes shining with genuine interest. "Your grandfather was wise," he said. "The wisest of our tribe," replied Nagele with pride. "He taught me to raise Thunder when he was just a calf. He was so sweet then, so trusting." But 6 months ago, there was a terrible storm. Lightning struck near the corral, and one bolt hit a tree that collapsed right in front of him. Since that day, he changed. Now he only sees danger everywhere. Bun nodded slowly, processing every word. Now he understood. Thunder wasn't naturally aggressive. He was traumatized, living in a constant state of alert, waiting for the next disaster to fall on him at any moment. "He needs to feel safe again," said Bun. "He needs to know that not everything in the world is going to hurt him." Nagele sat down next to him, keeping a respectful distance, but feeling curious about this strange cowboy who spoke of animal feelings as if they were as real as human ones. "Many tried," she said softly. "They started with patience, but after a few, they got frustrated. They wanted quick results. Thunder could feel that impatience, that frustration, and he got worse." "I'm in no hurry," replied Bun. "I have all the time in the world." Hours passed like that, simply observing the bull. Bun noticed that Thunder walked in circles, following the same pattern over and over, always staying away from the north side of the corral where the tree had fallen. He noticed how his ears moved with every sound, how his tail twitched when he was especially nervous. By noon, Bun stood up slowly and went to fetch something. Nagele watched him with curiosity as he returned with a bucket of fresh water and some high-quality hay. Instead of trying to enter the corral, he simply placed both items near the fence, where Thunder could reach them easily but without feeling threatened. "Is that it?" asked Nagele, surprised. For today, yes, replied Bun. Tomorrow I'll come back and do the same, and the day after that too, until he understands that my presence means good things, not danger. Nagele shook her head, but there was something in her expression that was no longer mockery. It was budding respect. The other cowboys wanted to ride him in 3 days, she commented. You're talking about weeks. Valuable things take time, said Bun, looking her directly in the eyes. And your thunder is very valuable, isn't he? Nagele felt her heart accelerate slightly. This cowboy not only understood animals, but also people. Yes, she admitted softly, he is. That afternoon, as the sun began to set, something extraordinary happened. Thunder, who had ignored the water and hay for hours, finally approached. He sniffed cautiously, looking toward where Bun was sitting again, and then, with slow and deliberate movements, drank from the water. Nagele held her breath. It was a small but significant step. Did you see that? She whispered with contained emotion. He's starting to trust. It's just water, responded Nagele, though her voice trembled slightly. Anyone could have brought water. It's not just water, corrected Bun. It's a promise. The promise that when I am near, he will be safe and cared for. As they walked back to town together, Nagele realized something that made her uncomfortable and excited at the same time. For the first time in 6 months, she had real hope of getting her thunder back. And something deeper, something she didn't want to admit yet, was beginning to bloom in her heart toward this patient and wise cowboy. The town watched them with curiosity. Day 1 had ended, and although nothing dramatic had happened, something had definitely changed. A week had passed since that first day, and the whole town was talking about the strange cowboy who spent hours sitting by the corral without doing absolutely anything. Some mocked him, others bet on when he would give up, but Bun listened to no one. Every dawn arrived with fresh food, clean water, and most importantly, his constant and calm presence. Thunder had begun to wait for him. He no longer bellowed with fury when Bun approached. His ears no longer flattened against his head in signs of aggression. It was slow progress, almost imperceptible to others. But for Bun and Nagele, every small change was a monumental victory. Nagele had started arriving every morning too. First, she told herself it was only to watch Thunder, to make sure the cowboy didn't do anything that could harm her beloved animal. But the truth was different. She enjoyed Bun's company, his stories about the roads he had traveled, his infinite patience, and his gentle way of seeing the world. My grandfather used to say that animals are mirrors of our souls, commented Nagele one morning as they watched Thunder chew hay peacefully. If you are nervous, they are nervous. If you are at peace, they find peace. Bun smiled, impressed by the depth of that wisdom. Your grandfather was a very intelligent man. In my years traveling the West, I've met many cowboys who treated animals like tools, not like beings with feelings. It always seemed sad to me. And your family? Nagele with genuine curiosity. Did they think differently? Bun looked toward the horizon, his eyes filling with nostalgia. My father was a hard man, one of those who believed strength solved everything. But my mother, she was different. She taught me that true strength lies in gentleness, in knowing when to be soft instead of hard. When she died, I left home. I couldn't bear to see how my father treated the animals on our farm. Nagele felt a deep connection with those words. She had also chosen her own path, staying faithful to her grandfather's teachings, even when others in her tribe had adopted more aggressive methods. I think your mother would be proud of you, she said softly. That day, Bun decided to take the next step. Slowly, very slowly, he entered the corral for the first time. Nagele tensed immediately, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. But Bun moved with supernatural calm. His steps were deliberate and non-threatening. Thunder watched him, his muscles tense, but he didn't attack. Bun stopped several meters away and simply stood there, making no sudden movements. He took an apple from his pocket, broke it into pieces, and placed them on the ground in front of him. Then he slowly backed away to the fence. You are a gift to him, Bun said in a low voice. Not a threat, just a friend who brings good things. 30 minutes passed, 40 an hour. Nagele barely breathed, watching every second of this silent dance between man and beast. And then, miraculously, Thunder moved. Step by step, with extreme caution, he approached the apples. He sniffed them, looked at Bun, and finally ate one. "He did it," whispered Nagele with emotion. "He really did it." Bun smiled, but he didn't move. He knew this was a crucial moment, and any premature celebration could ruin everything. Over the next few days, the routine continued. Bun entered the corral, left food, and gradually reduced the distance between himself and Thunder. He also began to speak to him in a soft, melodious voice, telling him stories about the mountains, the rivers, the stars in the night sky. Nagele listened to those stories too, and discovered that Bun had the soul of a poet trapped in the body of a cowboy. He spoke of the world with such love and admiration that it was impossible not to be moved. One afternoon, as the clouds began to darken, Nagele noticed that Thunder seemed restless. His ears moved nervously, and he began to walk in circles as he did when he was scared. "There's going to be a storm," said Nagele with concern. "Storms have terrified him since that day." Bun observed the bull carefully and made a decision. Instead of leaving the corral, as would be sensible, he sat on the ground in the center and began to sing. It was a song his mother had taught him, a soft melody about rain that brings life to the earth, about how storms are not enemies, but friends that nourish the world. The first thunder rumbled in the distance. Thunder bellowed in fear. But Bun kept singing, his voice firm and calm. Nagele, almost without thinking, began to sing too. An Apache song her grandfather used to sing when she was afraid as a child. Their voices intertwined in the air, creating a unique melody that blended two worlds, two cultures, two souls that were finding each other in ways neither had anticipated. The rain began to fall softly, at first, then harder. Lightning illuminated the sky, but Bun and Nagele remained, and then something extraordinary happened. Thunder, trembling with fear, approached Bun. He didn't charge him. He didn't attack him. He stayed close to him as if seeking comfort in his presence. Bun slowly extended his hand and for the first time touched Thunder's head. The bull trembled, but he didn't pull away, and while the storm raged above them, the three remained together. A cowboy, an Apache woman, and a frightened bull who had finally found a safe refuge. When the storm passed and the sun shone again, Nagele looked at Bun with eyes full of wonder and something deeper, something that scared her as much as it excited her. 2 weeks had transformed everything. Thunder now ate from Bun's hand. He allowed himself to be petted and even seemed to seek his company. The whole town was amazed. What seemed impossible had become reality before their eyes. But the real challenge was yet to come. It was a Tuesday afternoon when 3 unknown riders arrived in town. They were covered in road dust, with greedy looks and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The leader was a bulky man named Garrett, known throughout the region as a cattle trader, although many suspected his methods weren't always honest. "I heard about a magnificent bull in this town," announced Garrett in the middle of the square. "They say he is the strongest and most beautiful animal in the entire region. I have come to buy him." Nagele came out of her house, her eyes burning with determination. "Thunder is not for sale," she said firmly. "He never has been, and he never will be." Garrett looked her up and down with an unpleasant smile. "Miss, everything has a price. I offer 500 silver coins. It's more money than you'll see in your entire life." "No," repeated Nagele. "My answer is no." The tension in the square was palpable. Garrett's men exchanged glances, and something in those eyes made several townspeople feel a chill. Bun, who had been watching from the corral, approached slowly, placing himself beside Nagele. "The lady was clear," said Bun with a calm but firm voice. "The bull is not for sale." Garrett evaluated him with contempt. "And who are you, his protector?" "I'm his friend," replied Bun simply, "and that's all you need to know." The outsiders left, but the threat hung in the air like a dark cloud. That night, Nagele couldn't sleep. She knew men like Garrett. If they couldn't buy what they wanted, they took it by force. We should watch the corral tonight, suggested Bun, sharing her concern. Nagele nodded, grateful not to be alone in this. Under the stars sitting near the corral where Thunder rested peacefully, Bun and Nagele shared stories and dreams. She told him about her childhood in the mountains, about her people's traditions, about her grandfather, who had been a great healer and sage. Bun told her about his years traveling, about the beautiful places he had seen, about his constant search for a place where he belonged. "Have you found that place?" asked Nagele softly. Bun looked at her, and in his eyes was a truth that made Nagele's heart beat faster. "I think I have," he replied. "I think I found it here." But before they could say more, they heard noises. Shadows moved in the darkness. Garrett and his men had returned, sneaking toward the corral with ropes in their hands. "Stop right there!" shouted Bun, standing up. "Move aside, cowboy," grunted Garrett. "That bull is worth a fortune, and we'll have him with or without your permission." Thunder, awakened by the voices and sensing danger, began to agitate. The old fears returned, and he bellowed with fury. But this time it was different. It wasn't just fear. It was also protection for the two people who had shown him kindness. Garrett tried to throw a rope, but Thunder charged against the fence, making it shake. The men stepped back, surprised by the animal's ferocity. "We need backup," shouted one of them. Bun knew they had only seconds to act. If Thunder escaped the corral in this state of panic, he could hurt himself or someone else. All the progress of weeks would be lost in an instant. He did something no one expected. He opened the corral door and walked directly toward Thunder with absolute calm, even while the bull bellowed and kicked the ground with fury. "Bun, no!" screamed Nagele, terrified. But Bun didn't stop. He spoke in a soft but firm voice, the same voice he had used for weeks to build trust. "Easy, friend. It's me. I'm here. No one is going to hurt you, I promise." Thunder recognized him. Even in the midst of panic and confusion, he recognized that voice, that scent, that presence that had meant safety and kindness. Slowly, incredibly, he began to calm down. Bun extended his hand and touched Thunder's side, stroking him with smooth, repetitive movements. "That's it. Everything is okay. You are safe." And then, before the astonished eyes of everyone, Bun did something extraordinary. He mounted Thunder, not with violence or force, but with gentleness, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Thunder trembled for a moment, but he didn't buck. He didn't try to throw him off. The trust between them was complete. Garrett stood with his mouth open. They had never seen anything like it. A bull that had been impossible to control now carried a rider with total calm. "You'd better leave," said Bun from his position atop Thunder. "And if you try anything like this again, the whole town will know what kind of thieves you are." The townspeople had come out of their houses due to the noise, forming a circle around the scene. Garrett knew he had lost. With furious but defeated looks, he and his men mounted their horses and rode away into the night. When they were gone, Bun slowly dismounted Thunder and petted him with pride. "You did perfect, friend. Perfect." Nagele ran toward them, her eyes shining with tears of emotion and relief. In that moment, while hugging both Bun and Thunder, she knew with absolute certainty that what had begun as a joke, as an impossible challenge, had become the truest reality of her life. This cowboy had achieved the impossible, and in the process, he had conquered not only a wild bull, but also her heart. The following dawn was different from all the others. The whole town woke up talking about what had happened the previous night. The story of how Bun had ridden Thunder, how he had protected the animal and Nagele from the thieves, spread from mouth to mouth like wind across the prairies. Nagele hadn't slept. All night she had thought about the promise she had made weeks ago, when everything seemed like an impossible joke. "If you manage to get Thunder to accept you, I will marry you," she had said amidst laughter. But now, with the light of the new day bathing her face, those words had a completely different weight. It wasn't just that Bun had met the challenge. It was that in the process she had discovered an extraordinary man, a patient, gentle, wise man, brave when necessary, but never cruel. A man who understood that true strength lay not in dominating, but in connecting. A man who had seen her soul and respected it. She got up and walked to the corral. Bun was already there, as every morning. But this time Thunder was completely relaxed, rubbing his huge head against the cowboy's shoulder, like a giant kitten seeking affection. "Good morning," said Bun upon seeing her. His smile was as warm as the rising sun. "Good morning," replied Nagele, feeling butterflies in her stomach. "Bun, I need to talk to you." He looked at her with full attention, that special way he had of making the person in front of him feel like they were the only important thing in the world. "3 weeks ago, I made you a promise," began Nagele. Her voice trembled slightly. "I thought it was impossible. I thought you were like all the other cowboys who came with big words and little heart. I was completely wrong." Bun waited in silence, giving her space to continue. "Not only did you manage to get Thunder to trust you, you showed me that men of honor still exist in this world. Men who keep their promises not with force, but with patience and love. My grandfather used to say that a man's character is revealed in how he treats those who cannot defend themselves. And you treated Thunder with more respect and dignity than many would treat another human being." Tears began to roll down her cheeks, but they were tears of happiness. "Bun, when I made that promise, it was a joke. But now, with all my heart, I want to fulfill it. Not because I am obligated, but because I cannot imagine my life without you. Do you still want to marry me?" Bun's eyes filled with emotion. He took Nagele's hands in his with infinite tenderness. "Nagele, from the moment I saw you next to this corral, I knew my life had changed. I didn't come here looking for a challenge or a bet. I came following something I can't explain with words. My heart brought me to this town, to you, to this opportunity to show who I really am. And yes, with all that I am, I want to marry you. I want to build a life together, combining your wisdom with mine, your traditions with mine, creating something new and beautiful." They kissed under the golden light of dawn, while Thunder watched peacefully as if he understood that he had been part of uniting two souls destined to meet. The news spread like fire through the town. When the inhabitants learned there would be a wedding, the excitement was immense. Never before had there been a union between an Apache woman and a cowboy in their community. It was something new, something special, something that represented hope and possibility. During the following weeks, the whole town prepared for the celebration. The Apache women of Nagele's family created a beautiful dress that combined traditional fabrics with Western lace. The men of the town built a large open space decorated with wildflowers and colorful flags. The wedding day arrived with a clear and bright sky. Nagele looked radiant in her dress, her hair braided with desert flowers. Bun wore his best clothes, clean, and pressed his hat in his hand out of respect. But the most special part of the ceremony was that Thunder also participated. Decorated with garlands of flowers, the great bull walked alongside Bun to the improvised altar, a living symbol of the love, patience, and transformation that had made this moment possible. An elder from the town and a sage from the Apache tribe led the ceremony together for mixing traditions from both cultures. They spoke about respect, patience, and love that does not seek to dominate but to understand. They spoke about how Bun and Thunder's journey was a perfect metaphor for any true relationship. It requires time, dedication, and the willingness to see beyond appearances to the heart. When Bun and Nagele exchanged their vows, there wasn't a dry eye among those present. They promised to love, respect, and grow together. They promised to be bridges between cultures, examples that differences can be sources of strength rather than division. The celebration lasted until nightfall, with music, dances, abundant food, and laughter that filled the air. Stories were shared, friendships were formed, and the town experienced something magical, the sensation of being part of something bigger than themselves. When the stars began to shine, Bun and Nagele moved away from the celebration, walking toward the corral where it all had begun. Thunder was waiting for them, there calm and content. "Can you believe that a month ago all this seemed impossible?" asked Nagele, leaning on Bun's shoulder. "The best things in life are impossible," he replied, "until suddenly they aren't. We just need faith, patience, and the willingness to see the beauty that others overlook." Nagele smiled, petting Thunder with love. "My grandfather was right about many things, but he was wrong. About one, not all miracles come from the spiritual realm. Some come riding on dusty horses, with hearts larger than mountains and patience deeper than rivers." Under that starry sky, with Thunder watching pleasantly nearby, Bun and Nagele began their new life together. A life built on foundations of mutual respect, true love, and the understanding that the best victories are not won with force, but with gentleness. And so the bull that had been impossible to tame became a symbol of hope for the entire town, reminding everyone that with patience, love, and respect, even the wildest hearts can find peace.